So next we'll have Christina Chica.
Hello everyone. Oh god, y'all are short. Whatever, I'm loud, I can just you'll hear me. That's fine, you're good. Anyways. Hi everyone. So I've been involved with a lot of different things here on campus, anything from Students for Education Reform to the Princeton Equality Project, very much involved with the LGBT community and Dream Team. So at this moment I'm going to read a statement, right, from the Princeton Dream Team. We are here in solidarity for this cause, for divestment, and then afterwards I think I might speak a little bit more personally to my own thoughts and feelings, but I'll start with a statement by Dream Team. The Princeton Dream Team joins in solidarity with the Princeton Divest Coalition in asking the university to divest from corporations that profit from or contribute to the Israeli military occupation of the West Bank and Gaza. Divestment aims to discourage companies from participating in human rights violations and to undermine their material means of support. Palestinians are denied voting rights, free speech and assembly, and freedom of movement through a system of ID cards, checkpoints, and biometric scanners. Yes. Similarly, immigrants, and I'll say undocumented immigrants, in the United States experience heightened surveillance on their bodies and in their communities, face unjust detention sentences, and are separated from their loved ones every day. Our university should not profit from the dislocation of people, separation of families, and human rights abuses. We have a moral obligation to divest from occupation and invest in peace. So I just wanted to say, I think that kind of really says very nicely why this particular movement is important to other particular movements, in this case the movement to really help undocumented immigrants. I think, though, that, as been said prior, social justice issues are interconnected in ways that we don't quite understand sometimes, and don't see those connections until explicitly said. So one of the things that we highlighted in the statement was the following, right? The surveillance of bodies, the inability to have assembly, the inability to really operate or be in charge of your movement, have that freedom of movement and autonomy and self-determination. And I think that sometimes fear makes you do things, and I just want to address this particular point for a moment because I've been hearing it a lot. Everything that has been said in terms of no to divestment, I have had adequate responses from the yes side to then mitigate any sort of concerns I've had. But there was one thing that I thought was really interesting that people, I'm sure, will continue to point to for a variety of social justice causes, and that is fear. How do I know whether or not I can protect myself? How do I know if once we leave that, Israeli soldiers are going to have to be dealing with terrorist groups? And I've heard this sort of rhetoric and this logic used in a lot of different ways, particularly in the United States, in terms of homeland security, in terms of the way that we think about undocumented immigrants, in terms of the way that we think about preempting threats. But I think that whether it's the right to a woman's body with abortion rights, whether it's preempting X, Y, and Z sort of threat, we really can't use the preemption of threat, I think, as a way to, or really as a way to limit the liberties and the movement and the autonomy of other people. Not if we pretend to live in, our liberal democracies or whatever. I mean, whatever. But if we're going to start with Enlightenment thought and then continue on from there as the basis and core foundation for the way that we understand the way that modern societies are built, and if we're going to understand that as right to autonomy, right to decision making, right to freedom of one's personal bodily integrity, then we can really expand those things to mean a lot of things, whether it is abortion rights, whether it is immigration, and whether it is understanding that we can't step on people's civil liberties, and if we do, those are going to have an effect. So that's really the position that I come from, that I think the Princeton Dream Team comes from, is just understanding that those movements are interconnected, and really just that if we're going to allow fear to motivate whether or not we engage in human rights abuses or something like homeland security, really to sit with that and think about that for a second if we want to follow that to the logical end, and then what that means for all of these other things that we're going to compromise. So yeah, I don't know. I think also personally, thinking about borders, thinking about injustice and human rights, this could also be really talked about in a racially motivated sort of way. I think other people have already spoken to that. I don't know if I want to highlight that particular thing. But racism is something that happens not just in the United States, but all over the place, and it manifests itself in either hate towards specific ethnicities, religious practices, understandings, sexual practices, right? There's a lot of reasons why we disenfranchise people, either both in the legal sense, when in terms of voting, or in the social sense. And I think that we have to really understand how those things fit together. I don't know, I could stand up here and be like, well, what about this and this and that? And I can be like, well, this and this and that. But that's, I mean, that's not why I was asked to stand in front of here. If people would like to speak, I know that a lot of people have been having conversations, and I know that the brunt of those arguments have fallen to the Divest leadership to really convince people into doing this thing, whether it's a symbolic act or whether you think it'll have practical, tangible effects. If you would like another person to also speak to, I'm available as I'm chilling around here. So, yeah, I don't know, anybody want me to say something else about something else? No?
You're great.
Yeah. Okay, awesome.